Todd, first of all, thanks for meeting with me today. So what we're doing, just so you know, is we're going to Washington, D.C., and we're doing advocacy work in 3 different areas: healthcare, education, and ag policy and rural economics, completely bipartisan. We want politicians to work together for better policy in all 3 of those areas. And as we go, we're listening to stories along the way. So right before I sat down to talk with you, I met with a mom in Alton, Illinois, who's in danger of losing health care, and we were just kind of walking through the impact. So I'm really excited to sit down with you and talk about rural education. So I think a really good place to start would be, tell us about the school district. What's unique about Bunker Hill School District, and just tell us more about the school district itself and what kind of students you service in the community and that type of thing.
Sure. I am the proud superintendent here, very proud to be here. This is my 8th year as superintendent of Bunker Hill School District. We are a pre-K through 12 district spread out over 2 campuses, pre-K through 8, and then a high school, 9 through 12. This office stands separate. We also cover about 70 square miles of rural outlying areas. There are a couple of unincorporated areas, the village of Royal Lakes, Woodburn, Illinois, and many, many miles of rural outlying areas. Our population, is about 600 kids, pre-K through 12. I think we're like 58% low income. So I feel like it reminds me very much of the small town in which I grew up, Atlanta, Illinois. Similar size, demographics, 16 to 1,800 people. I think it basically epitomizes small town America.
Yeah, you mentioned, and I grew up in a school district like this, the vast amount of distance that your school district spans and what you have to cover. Maybe a question I'd like to ask, because I ask this a lot when I'm talking to rural school districts: how much of an impact does that have on school transportation? I know that, like, when I'm talking to somebody in a suburban or urban setting, they've got very few school buses. Most of the kids either walk or their parents give them a ride to school. What does it mean in a rural school district in terms of busing and the cost of diesel fuel and that type of thing?
Well, the cost of fuel, of course, factors into it. I'll explain it this way. You have many, many miles and not so many kids. Mm-hmm. So a lot of empty miles or miles of bus traveling to get 1 kid or 2 kids or 3 kids. Whereas the biggest difference between this and like an urban or a suburban setting, you may have few buses, but they will be stopping periodically at stops and being filled with kids. Our buses, like we run 3 full-time routes. That's just for the regular ed morning and afternoon routes. And those buses, while they do eventually get close to capacity, requires a lot of miles traversed, a lot of miles, a lot of time. So when you think about the impact that has, transportation costs are, I think that's been shown nationally, the trends are transportation costs are much, much higher for rural districts.
Mm-hmm. And that's set cost, right? Because if you've got 3 students on a route or you've got 25 students on a route, you've still got to cover that route regardless of what happens to your budget.
The mileage, the time, and the fuel don't really change. The only thing that changes is the number of passengers. I kind of compare that to when the broadband companies were putting fiber for internet. They would look at these rural areas like, wow, we're going to spend $40 million in fiber going all the way down this road, but there are 3 homes. Like, we're going to pick up three customers, and let's just say their internet bill's $100 a month. How long would it take $300 a month to make back $40 million? Mm-hmm. So that's not going to happen. We're in a similar situation with like the efficiency of transportation, be it is a mandate. And not only that, we also realize even if it wasn't a mandate, we would probably still do it because it's very important that kids get to school. And living my entire career kind of working in rural, working class school districts, I do realize that the number one barrier to a lot of things is often geography, distance, mileage. So transportation is the barrier, or is the solution to the barriers that we see a lot of our families have.
How much of the cost of transportation in a rural school district, how much does the school district cover itself, and do you get any help from the state and federal government with that?
Federal, no. But the state government, yes, but it's been going down consistently each year. And the reason for that is there is a formula to offset the costs, and what happens is the state of Illinois will allocate this amount of dollars. And they will say, okay, we'll say to make the math easy, let's make it 100 million. So 100 million goes out into the hundreds of school districts in Illinois, and it's like, okay, well, everybody submitted their transportation costs and Illinois should fund 80%, but we did that. 100 million is not enough to fund 80%, so we're cutting that down to 60%. And so that's how it typically works.
So the percentage gets lowered to meet
Each
whatever
year.
the total amount
Yes.
is in the overall pool.
Yes,
Fair
although, so we have to do our claim every August, and then we work with an estimate, like this is what Illinois would owe you, but because we have allocated this much money, and the costs have increased and over the years, and that amount really doesn't, I mean, it goes up, but not enough to offset the increases, so, yeah. A lot of it is absorbed. We have a local tax levy, a portion of our property tax levies in Illinois do cover the remainder of transportation.
In a rural school district, let's say as that state fund begins to lessen and lessen because of overall costs compared to the general pool of money, how do you make up for that difference? The taxes that you talked about, are those specifically designated for transportation, or do you have to take money out of other parts of the school budget to pay that?
Both.
Yeah.
So in Illinois, our property taxes are designed where, and I'm not sure who designed Illinois school finances, but I'm sure certainly it is a hodgepodge from centuries of building upon old laws to old laws. I think it probably goes back to when Illinois was in the Northwest Territories. So what we have is 9 different funds, education fund, operations and maintenance fund, debt service fund, and then Fund 40, the 4th fund, is known as transportation. So transportation, we can levy a property tax to fund only transportation. That would be your fuel, buses, drivers, your transportation costs. So obviously our district, if you look through the town, we don't have the local property tax wealth to completely fund our transportation needs. So we take that, we take what the state gives us, and then again, that's still not quite enough. So oftentimes we are given discretionary money from the state formula. Evidence-based funding, before 2017 they called it general state aid, but now it is evidence-based funding, and that has been, it's a much more fair and equitable system of funding. So when this pot of money states, like for a district our size, it could be like, 3.4 million. You take this money in like this, and then you can be like, okay, I'm gonna have to take 50,000 out of this, and I'm gonna have to slide it to make up the loss in the transportation fund.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. So I've talked to superintendents before in rural school districts, and I've had them tell me, not that it's unfair, but they say it makes being a rural school district superintendent much more challenging, the set costs of transportation, et cetera. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I'd say that's.
And how could we make things better for you as a superintendent in regard to funding, sourcing, and those types of things? Is there a better system that is out there that we just don't use right now, or that we could move to?
There's probably a better system that could be designed. Our entire kind of ecosystem of K-12 really hasn't changed much since, 1947?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in 1911, kids went to school in 3rd grade, and they realized, hey, they're not quite equipped to, either A, enter the workforce, or B, just be educated enough to maintain a democracy and read. So they upped that to 6th grade, and then it was like, okay, well, the world keeps changing, so they added more years. Then it's 8th grade, and then it's 11th grade. I think by 1947 they added 12th grade. But from 1947 to 2025, it hasn't changed really much at all. So I do think that there's definitely going to be a better way out there. It's just the fact that has not been reimagined or explored yet. Part of the reason is due to the fact that it is much harder to be a rural superintendent, but I'd also say it's much more rewarding to be a rural superintendent. And that whole issue with the transportation being tough, it's not just the transportation, it's IT, good luck, teacher shortage. I mean, good luck finding a Spanish teacher or a math teacher or a special ed teacher. The trades are exploding, and we have, I just came back from a meeting with a contractor, a construction management company they're dying for workers, and so they're trying to get access to the high schools to start I mean, they're willing to throw grants in to help sustain programs to feed them workers, but the problem is that we have a shortage. So we do have a lot going against us in the rural area. However, because of the nimbleness that comes from the small size, I think we're able to pivot and correct pretty quickly in order to make a bigger difference quicker in a kid's life. I feel like too often, I mean, I have friends that I respect dearly in big urban districts, and they talk about maybe a curriculum change. They will feed that thing through 3 years of committees. And then ultimately there's a presentation, there's a, then they've got the buy-in, and then they make the move, and then, so, if there's something where kids aren't being served, it may take 3 years to implement a positive change, whereas in a smaller district, though, yes, we all will work harder and we all wear multiple hats, but then again, we can make that change very quickly, and so that's, 3 years of kids that we were able to meet.
You brought up this is a great segue, because this is where I was going to go next. I wanted to talk about some of the challenges with staffing in a rural district. I did want to start, though, you brought up technology. Mm-hmm. And I know this is an issue where I live, is getting broadband out to the community mm-hmm. for students to be able to take advantage of, for businesses to be able to bring technical jobs. I have a tech company, and I know when I first started it, I tried to do that in my little hometown. And for the first 3 years, it was a huge challenge to be able to do that, because the speeds of the internet were so slow.
Right.
And then finally, eventually, lucky enough to live in a college town, the internet expanded and I was able to do that. What are some of the challenges? I'm thinking especially like during COVID-19, when you had kids at home,
yeah.
What kind of challenges do you face from a technology perspective, from a broadband and internet?
Well, 18% of our families don't have access to reliable broadband.
Even access, not that they can't afford it, but they just can't even get it.
Like it's not offered.
18%, so yes. 2 out of every 10 students almost.
Yeah. And so that is, those are you're talking your rural outlying areas where, again, I gave you that example earlier mm-hmm. about how you may have 3 customers on an entire road, but that road goes miles and miles. So there's a massive amount of cost involved on the front end, and without any type of a government program to incentivize or subsidize it, the payback is non-existent. It'd be like investing $20 million in a machine, then you're going to charge people a quarter for the product. It's going to take you many, many, many lifetimes to break even, let alone ever turn a profit.
It is interesting, though, that we do that with education and the expansion of broadband, but we don't do it in other areas. Like a teacher gave me a great analogy that I was talking to a couple of weeks ago. She said, imagine if we built our interstates with the same mentality in mind.
Yeah.
In other words, we build our interstates through the populated areas, and then when we get out into the country where very few people live, the road stops.
Yeah.
And you have to drive across open prairie to get to the next interstate at the next city, et cetera. And I thought that is a great analogy.
Right.
And that's also, I think, a primary driver of why you need government involvement when you're taking on these big projects
right.
like the expansion of internet.
Yeah.
Well, what would that mean for your school district if we were to reinstate the broadband expansion programs that we had about a year ago? And let's say that your district became fully integrated with broadband and high-speed broadband. What would that mean for the community and for your school district?
I think it would mean a lot of things for the community. I think previous to COVID-19, there was this, maybe it was a mistaken mentality of like, this town is dying or not going to grow because there's no jobs here, certain high-paying mm-hmm. jobs. I think that's been proven false, because even right now, people say, if this town is dying, and I say, well, find me a house for sale. Good luck finding one. Mm-hmm. If a town is dying, then you should easily be able to buy a house. There's not. I think the pandemic showed that with the ability to work hybrid or work remotely, those wide open spaces of rural America look pretty appealing. Low cost, typically a low cost of living, slower pace, and again, wide open spaces that you could work from anywhere. I think that would be helpful economically for our families. I think it would lead to housing growth, housing development. We wouldn't have to give these hotspots out to kids, that can complete their, because we don't want to completely get everything to the online teaching. That was not really a disaster, but it certainly was. It was better than nothing, but it was not just as good as regular in-person instruction.
But to your point, in terms of being able to do research for papers that
Yes.
you might be writing and those kinds of things, if you're a student without broadband, I think it's fair to say you don't have the same knowledge tools in front of you that you can use that someone with broadband does. That'd
Correct.
be fair, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we don't want any of our kids at a disadvantage. We don't want our rural outlying kids to be a disadvantage from our kids that live in town. But more importantly, we don't want Bunker Hill kids to be at a disadvantage just because, the zip code is 62014. We actually been working very hard to make the opposite true. We want people, when they hear about kids from Bunker Hill, we want them to say, well, that's not fair. They have an unfair advantage. That's the equity work that we try to do every day, to give kids an advantage, the unfair Bunker Hill advantage.
You brought up the teacher shortages and things like that. Now, you don't have to agree with me. This is me getting on my soapbox, but I come from a family of teachers. And one of the things that always kind of dumbfounded me, if I'm being honest, is this idea that a teacher should be a charity worker almost.
Right.
That, a teacher ought to be married to somebody with a good income and health insurance or whatever it might be. And, it's almost like you're volunteering at the local food bank or something like that to become a teacher. The challenges of staffing in a rural school district. I know what a lot of those are, but I think people would love to hear it from a superintendent in a rural district. What are some of those challenges?
The challenges are going to be for some of the positions that are pretty specialized. Right now, our district of 600 kids, we have posted for over a year with no luck, not one single applicant that was qualified for a school psychologist. So you probably read in the articles that kindergarten tantrums are on the rise, social emotional needs are continuing to increase, anxiety, but we have no school psychologists because so just to meet the minimum of requirements, we had to partner with a for-profit third-party contractor to have a virtual school psychologist, which is better than nothing, but it's not the same. So we have no school psychologists. We posted for a high school math teacher for over a year. We have a young candidate that is doing amazingly well, trying to. She has a provisional. Actually, I don't even think she has a provisional. She's actually student teaching now. She's counting as her student teaching her experience at Bunker Hill. Spanish, the district next door has no Spanish. We're very lucky that we did find a certified Spanish teacher, but for 2 years we did not.
What's the primary driver of that? I've talked to school districts before where they say it's a funding issue and that they can't pay those positions enough. I've also talked to other districts and they say it's actually the services available in the surrounding community. So one teacher told me that she had been offered a job in a rural school district, but there was no local hospital, there was no local clinic. Basically everything meant a 2-hour drive away. What do you think the challenges are caused by?
I think there are definitely districts that I'm familiar with where I could see that being a huge barrier. Here in Bunker Hill, we are rural, but we kind of have the best of both worlds because, as you noticed on the drive, it was a beautiful drive to get here.
Yeah, it wasn't that far. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. How long was it? 20 minutes?
Yeah, about 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Again, not perfect if you don't have a car. I think transportation, too often people think that cars are a luxury. No, I don't think so. Not in rural. I think transportation.
Until you don't have one.
Correct. Or what are you supposed to do? Like our nearest hospital is literally 12 miles to the east. If you do not have a car, I don't feel like a car is a luxury.
So we were asking the question, what causes the challenges to be able to hire teachers in rural school districts?
Now, our district, you have to be comparable in pay. But I'll be honest, too, there's always going to be a larger, wealthier, more funded district that can offer a better pay and compensation package. I'm not saying that's important, but it has to be comparable. You cannot be paying staff $15,000 to $20,000 less than the neighboring district. Not at all. You won't keep anybody. Money's probably not I feel money is not always the motivator, but money can certainly be a demotivator, a lack of it. So there is that. Our staff retention was 93% this year, much higher than the state of Illinois' average of 89. So we took it upon the part of, the shortage is real. It's here. We're gonna have to make the best of it. So we're finding people that in some cases aren't even certified yet, and we're just investing heavily in them. It used to be they would always say, go find the very best teacher and try to steal her from him or her from another district. now we're finding somebody that has a great attitude, willing to learn, and we're investing in.
So you built your own farm team. That's
Right.
what I got the
So,
Cardinals hat
yeah,
on. You
yeah.
built your strong farm team. Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed. Yeah.
So we're investing in them to make them great too. And I will say that, you know, I think the research says most people when they go into education, they do also want to stay like, I think 50 miles from where they grew up, right? So you have to take advantage of that because that's worth something as well. And then the culture and climate of the district. You know, do people feel like they have a voice? You know, like we have a calendar committee that meets. You know, we're very laid back on, the school district doesn't really mandate like we must have this days for spring break and this. All we ask is for a balanced calendar, which is good for kids. And so giving people that control over their own environment and I think being supported, you know, with the learning and the resources and the training needed to be successful is what leads to the high retention. Now, on the front end though, the lack of applicants in the pool, I hear a different story. I hear that it is insanely expensive to go to college for. Now they have figured out a way to make a teaching degree a 5-year journey. I'm not sure that was done for rigorous reasons or if that was, you know, probably the answer is probably somewhere in between. I suspect that may have been done to ensure job security, like with the higher education institutions. And I think if that stuff gets carried away too much, nobody wants to go in debt to pay 5 years worth of college tuition and housing to go make $41,000.
What are the requirements on student loan forgiveness for teachers right now?
10 years of all 120 payments. That's 12 in a year. So has to be 120 payments without missing one or being late. So that's 10 years of on-time payments in a predominantly Title I school. It is a lot of paperwork for them. I believe since I've been here 8 years, I have signed many, and I only know one that actually had some discharged.
So wait a minute. You just said something I didn't know. So this isn't a program where when you become a teacher at a certain point in time, you can file for forgiveness. You have to have the financial wherewithal to pay on time for 10 years.
120 payments.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
Yes.
So no wonder you've only had one person
that I'm aware
qualify
of.
for it.
Yes.
How could that program be fixed? I mean, for me, first of all, tell me if I'm wrong. 10 years seems like an awfully long investment for a teacher to have to make with the need being so critical in order to get the forgiveness, number one. And number two, you're just coming out of college at the age, I guess, on a 5-year program, 23 years old.
22, 23.
Yeah. And, you know, most people go through the same cycle. They crash their credit and then they rebuild it again. Those two things seem like an unwary burden.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, if you want to share them?
Sure. I mean, my thoughts are to be improved. I feel like, you know, I first of all, I don't know if anybody is even aware of all of it, and I'm not sure that people are automatically being notified. I think, like years ago, there was a program where veterans could have things discharged, and people were looking at it and they're like, well, why isn't anybody? And it was like, well, why don't we just make it automatic? You know, I mean, there's problems with that. I mean, to me, that would make a lot more sense is to make it automatic because once teachers suspect that they are close to the 10 years, they have to send a PDF or a DocuSign document to every employer that they've worked with. And let me tell you, I mean, superintendents, I think the statewide trend in Illinois is 3.2 years that they stay in the seat. So that's going to be
So if you've been working for 20 years, 25 years, or even 10 years, you may have had 4 different jobs.
Or if you worked somewhere 10 years ago, you don't know who the current student is, and the superintendent is. So I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of hoops to jump through.
The jaded part of me says that might be intentional. The realistic part of me says that's bureaucracy. But either way, it doesn't work out great for the teacher.
Because I did read something about like why couldn't it be automatic, and they said like even if you're bestowing benefits, there still has to be a way for somebody to accept that. Because I can't imagine anybody would ever say like why did you discharge my loan? I wanted to pay on that for another 35
No, nobody's
years.
going to.
No, but I don't know. I feel like it could be easier there.
Especially when you have people who've been paying for 30 years and they barely brought the principal down.
Right.
You know?
And I think to be fair on the other side too, I think people need to be a little bit more careful.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going to college to be a teacher and you're going to work in a rural, low income school, I mean, I would think very hard about borrowing the full amount of room and board and tuition to live on campus and, join the fraternity, sorority, and have the whole, what they call the college experience, go to college and find yourself, maybe crash out, flunk out a semester or two. Those days should
Did
be
somebody
done.
give you my biography?
Right, I was gonna think, but those days should be done.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
worst advice is to tell a kid, go to college.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the old model was get them through high school, tell everybody to go to college and go find yourself. And the kids that didn't go to college, not sure they found themselves either. We're doing a lot better job now, I think, in our district anyway, of trying to get kids to find themselves, be thinking about themselves and who they are younger, so that when they do leave high school, it's not everybody has to go to college, take on 70 grand, 80 grand in debt.
Or just to figure out if college was the right decision
Correct.
to begin with. Yeah.
Like I said, the whole thing could be better, but it just needs to look a little bit differently. I have faith and hope that it could be done. It's just going to require some bold vision and some leadership. I don't know if that comes from the state level or regional level or the national level, but I think that's.
It almost seems like it would need to come from the national level so that you don't have some states that have a better program of forgiveness in place, or a better pathway to become a teacher than other states do. Because it seems like that would even make your competitive environment even worse.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, I know, you've already seen that. The Why Rural Matters report 2025.
I did. I read it several times.
You saw the new number 50 spot was the state where they have more unlicensed teachers. Teachers are fleeing certain states.
Yeah.
So
mine is one of those.
Missouri was.
Yeah.
Oklahoma was.
Oklahoma was.
Yeah. Good job. You hit number 50.
Yeah.
That's not a good goal.
Well, I jokingly say whenever it gets bad in Missouri, we can always look toward Oklahoma in terms of education. Unfortunately, it's really sad for them. I've got family that lives there, and they
I have superintendent.
Never cease to complain.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about for just a second before I came in, and I'm so glad you brought it up, are the impact of outside of the school programs on the kids that are attending school. And I think right now, I've been hearing a lot about this. I'm sure you have too as a superintendent, the impact of the cut in SNAP benefits and what that means when kids come to, I'm not going to ask you to get into the politics of all of it, but what is the impact of a kid that comes to school hungry?
They can't learn. I mean, you don't have to be political. I would assume this is 1,000% bipartisan. Nobody enjoys seeing hungry kids, right? And I do believe that. I don't feel like anybody in this country wants to see hungry kids. But it's just like in the old days when schools started doing the things that we started doing. I don't think when I started school in 1981, I'm pretty sure school breakfast wasn't a
Me either. I was a free lunch kid.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I was a free lunch kid that didn't even have the protection of anonymity.
Yeah.
We got 5 green little tickets every Monday. And they said, don't sell those for cigarettes. I mean,
we just had a mean lunch lady that made sure everybody in the cafeteria knew you were a free lunch kid.
They would roll their eyes. The cashiers, they would roll their eyes and be like, oh, in the jar.
Yeah.
And we'd have to reach up and put this green ticket in the jar. So
Yeah.
we were on free lunch for about a month in high school.
Yeah.
My sister and I, we were always on free lunch qualified, but never again.
Yeah.
Never again because of the shame. But breakfast, lunch. There are schools that do supper, dental care. They did fluoride treatments with us when we were a kid because it was a bunch of us poor kids from the country and never been to a dentist. So they would do weekly fluoride treatments with us. But all of these things that schools do, the dental stuff, the mental health screenings coming up in 2027, these are the things that stop a kid from learning. And you can say that's not the school's spot, and maybe you're right. But the fact is, if a kid has a toothache, they can't learn. If a kid is starving with a stomach ache, they can't learn. If a kid is thinking about, are my parents going to be home tonight because they're maybe divorced or split up, they can't learn. And so all those things, if a kid is anxious just because maybe they're depressed or a mental health issue, they can't learn. So that's the way we would take it. So yes, we just finished a very, very, I don't know if you saw on the door, the big massive food drive that we had
I
just
saw that.
conducted. Yes, and that was to supplement the food pantry across the street, which notified us 2 weeks ago that they were getting close to being depleted. So if this doesn't lift soon, we've already been talks with our admin team. Our administrators always try to do a community service project. We're talking about doing a community-wide Thanksgiving. We're also talking about doing another food drive, this time bigger, and just opening up here instead of going to the food bank, opening up here for our SNAP families to come and replenish. So
That's
maybe
great.
on Saturday.
It's
But
great in
the
the
stuff
sense that the
schools-
community's coming together,
Yes.
but it's also sad in the fact that it's necessary.
Yeah, and I think
guess.
the food pantry in this town doesn't even appear on the local Find Map food indicator. So,
Yeah.
like I said, if you go on, I think it's called Find Illinois Food Map or something, it will find you a free pantry. The nearest one is, I think, 12-15 miles. So, again, you cut SNAP in the food for the kids, and then say, well, there's a food bank over there, a pantry 50. If you don't have a car, it's a barrier. So
Or-
again, it comes back to what
Yeah.
I say, in a rural district, in rural America, transportation is critical infrastructure. You can't just walk
Right.
out in front of your apartment and then catch the bus down to
Or if you have
Phoenix.
parents like you and I did, where there might be a pride issue there, and they don't want to be seen at the pantry. I've heard pantry volunteers tell me that
Oh, yeah.
their kids they know are hungry, but mom or dad don't want to be seen at the pantry, getting the free food.
Correct.
Let me ask you a question. What are the long-term ramifications on a student that's hungry or isn't getting the mental health help that they need, or isn't getting the medical help that they need? What does that result in terms of their academic career while they're in the school, and what can it mean long-term if you know that
Long-term,
part of it?
a non-productive society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the goal, right? Your goal, I mean, I always look at our school mission statement, and people will say, like, what is the job of a school? Is it reading, writing, and arithmetic? And no, I've thought about this for 29 years, and I feel like the mission of a school is, it sounds weird, but it's to develop a soul. You know what I mean? To take somebody, that sounds really weird, sorry. But you take somebody.
It doesn't sound weird to me at all.
You take somebody
Yeah.
in, no matter what condition they're given to you in, some great, some that have been cared for, some that have been neglected, some that have been abused, some of them that are good to be alive. You get them in all conditions, and you're going to take them over 13 years. You're going to take them on this journey to become everything they could be with their potential. That looks different for every kid. Some kids, it's going to be, yes, they are going to go to a university and become a doctor. Some kid, you are going to go right from high school to work, and that is absolutely fine. As long as you're happy and you can make a living, that is what makes a productive citizen. So I think that the ultimate long-term cost of the long-term effects of that would be a decline in productive citizens. And how does that come about? If a kid has ADHD, can't focus, can't learn concepts, as the years go by, I mean, we all know what a kid does when the lessons are repeatedly taught over their head, right? What do you think a kid does when they're sitting in class and everything that they're hearing is way above their head? They feel like it's a foreign language. They just act out.
Mm-hmm.
They act out, or they tune it out, and then the learning stops. So then they become a behavior problem. So they sometimes are removed from class. So there's the learning gap even further behind. Then comes the learning gaps on the achievement test, which may begin to close a few opportunities. By the time they're a freshman, they've got their mind made up that this isn't my thing, and it breaks my heart to think that this would ever happen to a kid at Bunker Hill. But I just say, institutionally as a country in public education, that 9th grade year they call it the make it or break it year, but typically the seeds for that 9th grade make it or break it year start in 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you have a kid that has these issues of like, they'll think like, I'm not good at reading,
Mm-hmm.
or math isn't my thing. I don't have a math brain.
I hear young kids
It's
a lot talk
it's all
about, I'm
garbage.
not good at math, I'm
Yes.
not good at math, I'm not good
Anybody
at
can be good at math.
Yeah.
Yes, some people learn easier than others. I learned very much easier to read, but I never thought that somebody that wasn't a reader. Just like the people that, pick up a ball and they dribble it,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not an innate born thing where somebody is born a basketball player and you're just not a basketball player. No, you can be a basketball player. You're going to have lessons, and maybe even a boot camp. If it was my case, boot camp lessons,
Yeah.
24/7
Whatever they
shooter,
offer.
playing the old games on the Nintendo system.
Yeah.
And it still didn't get me quite there, but I
Yeah.
could play basketball.
Mhm.
And that's how kids need to be too. So all of these extra factors that we discussed, like, you know, the hunger issues, the funding and things like that, ultimately it could lead to disengaged students, which I think greatly lead to a decrease in productive citizens, hopefully not an increase in incarcerated population.
Mhm.
That was the old standard years ago. They were planning future prisons based on 8th grade reading scores.
Wow. So let me ask you this again. We don't even have to get into the politics of it, but the EBT cards were turned off and SNAP benefits started on November 1st. What's the lag way between when that happens and when teachers start to see the impacts of that in the classroom?
I mean, we've already gotten calls here for assistance. I don't know if our teachers have seen it yet. I'll tell you this week, one thing I've repeatedly heard from the teachers this week was, seemed like what did somebody tell me yesterday? This week seemed like 3 years long.
Mhm.
I just assumed it was that full super beaver moon that we had.
Yeah, it
But
could have been a combination.
Could have been that.
But that's amazing how quickly. I mean, we're just 6th, 7th of the month, and already a week in, you're seeing the impacts as an educator on those empty stomachs.
Yeah, it's funny that I did not think of that until I thought we would have a 2-week grace, and maybe we do, maybe I don't. I mean, I don't have any scientific data to back that up, other than everybody was, teachers here were telling me that this week seemed very long.
You know, it makes sense, and I think that I love talking to you and the other people in education, because I think sometimes when we hear about cuts or the government shut down, we just view it on paper, or it's a story on television. You don't think about what are the actual impacts in the classroom. So to hear you talk about those things.
Some of it can be short-sighted too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go through the federal budget and cut Head Start and early childhood, yeah, it's gonna improve your bottom line greatly for a year or two. Now, 5 years down the road, somebody else, you're kicking that can to the next person, because in 5 years somebody's gonna have to be dealing with schools are gonna be saying, where we got all these 5-year-olds coming in not ready. We cannot even start talking about the alphabet and numbers because we're showing how to use a bathroom in public.
Yeah, little things I didn't think
childhood,
about.
yes.
Like you're talking about preparation and Head Start being a great education program. I didn't realize until I started doing rural advocacy, it's also the #1 daycare program in rural America.
Yeah.
So on average, it would mean an additional $2,400 a year just in daycare expenses, not to mention the impacts you talked about on education and spending that extra time to get students up to speed.
It's a double whammy. You're keeping the kid trapped in a cycle. You're putting them at an educational disadvantage so that by the time they hit kindergarten, that word gap and learning gap is already bigger. And you put a double whammy because now the families, they're spending more of their resources just to tread water. So it's a double whammy on the kid. I think we can do, but I mean, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Well, you're an educator, so I'm going to add, first of all, I appreciate you spending so much time with me. I went a lot longer than I told you I was going to, so I'm sorry. But once I get started, I just love hearing about the challenges. All right, so you're an educator at heart. I want to ask you to put a grade. If you were to grade the local supportive, and you don't have to make it about your school district.
Sure.
If you were to grade when you consider parents and taxation and funding and those kinds of things, give me an A through F grade on local support for education, statewide support on education, and federal support of education.
Well, and those are vastly different numbers.
Right.
Like a federal, if I gave you an F, I can tell you we could survive it because it's like 8 to 12% of our budget.
Yeah.
Whereas the state level is like over 50. So we couldn't operate without state assistance. We could operate without federal. But okay, so local A. I will say every year we do our audit. We get an outside independent audit. In our fiscal, we're good fiscal stewards of the finances. I've always said in a rural community, especially, like, trust is paramount, and people here are sending you. I don't know about some of the urban cities, but I don't know 2 things people care more about in rural areas are their children and their tax dollars. I'm not even sure that order. Some people.
Yeah.
It may be-
you have a valid argument when it comes
may
to
be
that.
Converse, yeah, but
Yeah.
like, yes, the two most valued possessions, right? Your tax dollars and your kids. So I would say every year we got our fiscal audit, and it shows that we're good stewards, but it also shows out of what we levy each year of property taxes, 99.5% of our taxpayers pay their taxes. And that's unfortunate for taxpayers, and let me say why. Because I was a superintendent starting in 2012, and from 2012 to 2017, it was brutal for funding. We had slashed art, music, we had slashed transportation for sports. The state, every school district in Illinois had a billboard, a marquee that showed how many days late Illinois was paying, how much money they were in debt to the state of Illinois. Many districts filed a lawsuit against the state for not funding their portion. So Illinois, and probably any state, probably doesn't have the best, most reliable track record on making payments on time. It's gotten a lot better since 2017, much better. However, that can all change in an election, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, could you find any state in America that has a 99.5% payment rate on time? 99.5%? That's pretty darn good. So that's why I think I give our local financial support the A+.
Mm-hmm.
It's consistent and you count on it. Unfortunately for the taxpayers, it's an over-reliance on your local tax wealth, because we would love to be able to shift more away and draw more down from federal and state. But that's just not possible.
Yeah.
State of Illinois, I would give it a B+. B+, because I remember how it used to be under the old formula, which was had disastrous effects back when they did general state aid. Now with evidence-based funding, it does exactly that. It gives funding based on the evidence. So I would give that a solid B+. The federal funding, this year was tough, because getting an email on June 30th that your funds have been clawed back because they don't match the vision, and they waited till June 30th to do this when we expected it July 1st. I don't know if that was intentional or a lack of foresight, but man, it certainly made things hard.
What was the financial impact, and what types of programs would have been funded out of that?
Well, we had already done a cost analysis benefit, cost usages. So we had already done that, and we tried to proactively shed some subscriptions, softwares that we either weren't using totally, or just maybe weren't utilizing to their full amount. So we were trying to get ahead of it and cut some things. But for our district, Title II funds were about $20,000. But I've got friends I've talked to that was $250,000, and that's for professional development,
Mm-hmm.
for teacher quality, teacher retention. So
striking right at the core of that biggest challenge
Correct.
that you talked about.
I think the argument was made that it was used for teachers to go get, weird radical left PD. Our teachers used it. They go to get master's degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and we reimburse their tuition to get a master's degree, and because we want them to be able to teach dual credit,
Right.
so that our kids can leave high school with, we got a girl graduating in May with a 2-year college degree at the same time, $0 in debt.
So they have the same opportunity
Yes.
as larger school
So
districts.
that was
yeah.
what our Title II funds were going for. So when that came out, we had proactively told teachers, hey, this year, not everybody that we had asked to go get their master's, I'm not sure we're going to be able to fund that. So over the summer, some teachers are like, well, if I'm not getting reimbursed, I don't know that I can swing the cost
Yeah,
of tuition.
because then again, it becomes I have to
Yeah.
pay for it out of my own pocket.
So they drop it. And then it's like, a month later, it's like, hey, guess what? They did order the release of Title
Yeah.
II funds. It's like, well, I'm not signing up
I
for the
can't
class.
sign up for the classes
So,
now.
Yeah, that was the really frustrating thing, because I'm not sure. And like I said, cynical side of me was like, was that frustrating? Was that done on purpose just to make educators miserable across America? I can't believe it was. Or was it just not thought
Thinking through, the
But,
ramifications.
Most of our teachers, when they do get their master's degree, at least in our area, we have Southern Illinois University down there, but the other one is Greenville University, which is I think it's a Free Baptist affiliated university. So there's no indoctrination going on.
Mhm.
It was literally, but anyway, that's.
All right. Last question. I ask this of everybody because I love people to hear this. What does a rural school mean to the city? What does it mean to the rural community?
It's the heartbeat, I think. When I came here, it reminded me of my hometown, but I also know my hometown. We closed our high school, and I go there now too some days, Atlanta, Illinois, and I think the only thing in town is a Dollar General and a Casey's. That's it. When I was a kid, we had a movie theater, bookstore. We had a fur bounty place where you could kill animals and get $7 for bounties on fur, but it's all gone now except for the Casey's and that, and that's where people, I think, this started this whole rural brain drain misnomer. Yeah, I think if a community loses its school, it's not much of a community, not as much of a community anymore. On the converse side, though, if the school operates in a silo and acts like it doesn't need the support of the community, it won't. The school won't thrive. So if you have a community that's supportive of the school, and the school that is also in return supporting the community and being an active partner, not just send us your taxes and your kids and stay away and let us do our thing, but actually partnering with the school, that's what makes a school thrive, and that is hand in hand in a rural school. It goes along with the trust, and it lines up to what people want for their kids, and I think the results speak for themselves. You've seen many trends in rural areas where schools are declining, all that. I mean, our district is an anomaly. We've had 3 years of back-to-back growth. And I think it's literally a result of the positive school.
That's great. That's great. Todd, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you sitting down with me, and it was great to meet you.
It was nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.